So there is a new poll out that shows that Americans are very, very unhappy with President Trump as well as congressional actions on mass shootings. Now, congressional action, I would actually point out that there is no congressional action, and that is why people are angry. Now, according to a new Washington Post ABC News poll, more than 3/4 of respondents said that Congress is not doing enough to stop mass shootings. Now, 60% said the same of President Donald Trump. Well, President Trump, to be fair, there's not a lot he can do, not without the actions of Congress. So I actually agree more so that the problem lies with Congress and not specifically with Donald Trump. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not his fault when he vetoes any sort of things. And look, we're also going to look at his budget as well, which, again, I'll get into the details of what it cuts when it comes to guns, gun safety, mental health, and things like that, which are important factors. So Trump's not entirely blameless, but at the same time, I think most people got it right that this is a problem with Congress not even bringing up anything to vote on. Now, more findings. Of those polled, 62% said Trump is not doing enough to prevent mass shootings. 77% said the same of Congress. Okay, that's what we just went over. So Congress is doing nothing, and they are still committed to doing nothing, and people are pissed. So let me break this down, because country wants solutions, right? However, we're a little bit divided on what kind of solutions we want. Now, for example, 50% said they would support a nationwide ban on so-called assault weapons. These are guns like AR-15s and other semi-automatic military-style rifles. Now, 46% of respondents said they would oppose such a ban. Now, 58% of respondents said they believe stricter gun control laws could have prevented last week's shootings, so that's actually quite a majority, compared with 37% who said that tighter laws would not have prevented it. So that's actually pretty good. So you have a majority of the country saying that, yes, we should ban AR-15s and other so-called assault weapons, and also we should have tighter gun control measures. I think that would include things like high-capacity magazine bans, universal background checks, waiting periods, mental health screens, and things like that. They think that those would have prevented those shootings. Now, interestingly enough, that is the more liberal position. Nowhere in there is ban all guns, melt them down, and make a statue of a kneeling football player. No, that's not in the liberal position. Yes, there are some people on the liberal side that do think that is a solution. But I think in America, and I've said this before, I don't necessarily think that's going to happen because our culture is not ready for it. It is a culture problem. And unfortunately, I believe that we're a culture of death, that we are obsessed with fear, that we are a fearful nation. We're fearful of each other. We're fearful of the other. And that, of course, makes it very, very hard for people to want to voluntarily give up the guns. And that's the only way that we would ever actually get any sort of gun control laws. Let's take Australia, for example. They had one mass shooting, and most Australians said, okay, you know what? It's not worth this shit. Let's just take the guns. Take them. That's not going to happen in America, at least not anytime soon. Same thing happened in the UK. They also had a shooting, a mass shooting. I believe it was in a school, but I'm not entirely sure. They're like, okay, yeah, take them. This shit isn't worth it. But here in America, we're like, no, we don't care. We're still going to keep our guns because I'm afraid of, black guy over there. I'm afraid of the Mexican over there, and I'm afraid of the Muslim that I think is going to come blow me up. So how dare you take my guns? I'm also afraid of the government becoming tyrannical and taking my rights. Well, to be fair, the government's already taken some of your rights. The right of habeas corpus, for example. And then, of course, we live in a surveillance state. The Fourth Amendment rights are being abridged all the time. Illegal search and seizure, on and on and on and on and on. But nonetheless, there are people that think, no, I've got to arm myself to protect myself against the government. That would explain why a lot of the guns are congregating into the hands of only a few people. Because these people are stockpiling because they think, don't worry, I'm going to take on the government with my AR-15. Okay, well, Congratulations on being an idiot. Because you ain't going to stop a predator drone, buddy. No. Anyway. So look, the liberal position is modest to strict gun control laws. Just saying, hey man, yes, we're going to have our guns, but we can take certain guns off the market that are more deadly, that could be modded into fully automatic rifles with bump stocks, for example, what they used in the Vegas shooting. And we can do, ban these high-capacity magazines and just things to make what are already deadly instruments a little less deadly and make sure that less of them get in the hands of the mentally ill. So that's, I think, a fairly popular position. What is an unpopular position, as I said before, is banning guns. That ain't ever going to happen, not in today's culture. Now, the Republican position is more guns everywhere. Let's arm teachers, for example. I've seen this argument all the time. If we just arm the teachers, then the teachers could go and, since they're the good guy with the gun, they should be able to stop all the attackers. Well, for one, again, that personally doesn't make sense. Because if you're in that kind of situation, look, even if you have a gun, that doesn't negate the element of surprise. Most mass shooters, they walk in and nobody expects them there, obviously. And so you catch somebody by surprise before they can draw, before they can aim. They're dead. You're dead. And then guess what? They get another gun to continue their rampage. So arming teachers to me doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. But I'm sure it's people just being like, hey, look, I want to make sure that there's somebody there to protect kids. I understand why, but to me, it doesn't make sense when you actually look at what's going on. And not only that, but we hardly even pay teachers enough to actually do their job. Now you're adding another job onto that, which is to be basically an armed enforcer against mass shooters. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. Now you're entrusting them with even more responsibility. By the way, does that come with a pay increase? Does that cover all the costs for training and for, to keep that weapon around, to make sure that they buy ammunition? But why are we buying ammunition for teachers when we're not buying pencils and pens for the students, books and computers and things like that? It really just shows how messed up our priorities are on this issue. But nonetheless, that is a Republican position. A lot of them say, okay, let's give more guns. Let's have more guns because an armed society is a polite society. How polite is it for everybody to be aiming guns at each other? I don't know. But okay. Now, the poll talked about that. 51% said the shooting could not be prevented if teachers had guns, where 42% said such rules could have stopped it. Okay. So, again, there are some disagreements here, but for the most part, I think the majority is in favor of the more liberal position of let's have some gun control and not go crazy and arm our teachers. Now, this is where there's even more wide agreement, is on the subject of mental health. 77% of respondents said that more effective mental health screening and treatment could have stopped the shooting. That is possible. For example, this guy, the last shooter, I'm not going to say his name, in Florida, he passed all of his tests. And he got a legal gun, right? So he got his gun legally. But he had a history of mental health issues. So I think a lot of people will go to, okay, look, he had some issues. Maybe a better mental health screen could have prevented him from buying that gun. And that certainly is possible and certainly is plausible. So I guess it makes sense that a lot of people would actually think that. However, this is part of the Republican narrative. And this is what's the problem with this focus just on mental health. Which is not to say that it's not important to talk about mental health. But let me just talk about the framing here. Now, Republicans say that we need to focus specifically on mental health and screening. And don't worry about the gun. The gun's not the problem at all. Guns don't get up and shoot themselves. It's the people. It's a people problem. And specifically, it's a crazy person problem. So we just need to control the crazy people, right? Well, the thing is that they use that, but they don't actually support policy that would actually do what they're talking about. And that's a hypocrisy. Let me give you an example here. And this is where you can fault President Trump. Trump's latest budget cuts a major source of public funds for mental health treatment. That's the Medicaid program by $1.4 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, the budget also calls for a 36% cut to an education department grant program that would support safer schools. It would reduce this grant by $25 million. That is a $25 million cut. Their budget right now is $67.5 million. So we're going to cut mental health services and we're going to cut school safety programs. But let's talk about increasing safety in school and increasing and talk about mental health. Anything but the guns. Come on. Hypocrisy, right? You want to point out mental health as a cause of mass shootings? Okay, let's do that. But if you're going to do that, then don't cut mental health funding. At least be consistent on this issue, but they're not. Look, the best way to deal with mental health, by the way, is to guarantee health care for all Americans under a Medicare for All system. You guarantee health care for all Americans, well, then there you go. Everybody's got treatment. Everybody's got not just access, but everybody who needs it will get mental health care. So there you go. That seems to be a good solution. And look, over 60% of Americans support a plan to enact a single-payer system, so why not do it? Well, it's because they don't actually care. Remember, the NRA spent $30 million helping to elect Trump. And of course, Trump, on Medicare, said, oh, that's a crazy plan. Crazy Bernie and his crazy healthcare plan. It's so crazy to ensure that everybody has healthcare, including mental health care, which could catch people, properly medicate them before they go on a violent rampage, which actually, there's another problem with that narrative as well. And it's the idea that anybody who's mentally ill, that a lot of mentally ill people have the ability to go and shoot up a school, when actually, look, a lot of people with anxiety, a lot of people with depression, they don't go and do mass shootings. Even people with schizophrenia don't go out there and do mass shootings. At least the mental illness isn't the cause of these mass shootings. It's more of societal factors. Again, that last shooter in Florida, he was a social outcast. He was somebody that was vindictive and cruel, and that didn't have anything to do with his mental illness. He was just a terrible shit stain of a person. And you have to be a terrible shit stain of a person to do that kind of thing to other human beings. So, mental health, again, not the only answer here, but on the money. And why they're not, Congress and Trump are not actually doing anything. Gun advocacy groups, and this includes the NRA, spent more than $135 million on lobbying from the years of 1998 to 2017. This is according to the Center for Responsive Politics. That's why Congress isn't doing anything. That's why Trump won't do anything. All you have to do is follow the money. Just follow the money. The NRA gives way more money to politicians than gun control groups do. And look, it's because they have more money. They're backed by the gun manufacturers. They make a profit when people buy guns. When people are more afraid of mass shooters, they buy more guns because they think, well, the gun's going to protect me from a mass shooter. It's going to protect my home from home invaders. And in some cases, yes, there are cases out there where people actually have defended their home against home invaders. Or people have actually, defended against a mass shooter here and there. But I think that's exceedingly rare, and the data that we see points that out, that it's rare. But what we have is that we have a climate of fear, and a climate of fear is actually really, really good for gun sales, for gun manufacturers. And so they have this sick incentive that the more mass shootings you have, the more money you make. That's a really sick incentive. And measures that have been proven to save lives, not by America, but measures that are enacted in other countries that don't have this problem, well, we're going to fight against those because that hurts our bottom line. And less people buying guns, less fear means less profit. And we cannot have that. And remember, America is an outlier. We are the only country in the developed world without, number one, a single-payer healthcare system. So, that covers mental health, right? So we do have people that cannot get mental health treatment. We're also the only country in the developed world without strict gun control. And we have one of the biggest gaps in wages, for example. If you don't think that plays into it, it does. We have no worker protections, so people are overworked, stressed out, economically insecure. There's a lot of stress, anxiety, depression, division, hatred. Look, it's no wonder that in these conditions that there are a lot of people who might actually qualify as being mentally ill. And that a small percentage, and of course that is a small percentage of the people, as I pointed out, but nonetheless, all this stuff comes together into a toxic soup that makes it actually likely. And then you throw in all the guns that we have, more guns than people, well then this soup just got deadly. So there's not just one thing that's going to fix this problem, though. There's no magic bullet, no pun intended. Gun control, I think, is a good start because it might actually help solve a lot of the problem. Because I think one of the biggest problems here is you have the guns. But there are a lot of other different problems that are affecting this. Again, no access to be able to have mental health care. You've got a society that is, of course, based on fear. Fear of other, division, and of course you have money in politics, which is preventing congressional action on things that are actually popular with most of the American people. So I would say the biggest problem is money in politics, followed by the fact that we have too many guns and loose gun laws, and then followed by mental health, and then of course our society. So maybe part of the solution first has to be the fact that we should demand or elect politicians that are not afraid to take in the gun lobby, that don't take money from the NRA. And that those people will enact some stronger gun control measures. That would be the first step. Unfortunately, that's the hardest step to take. But right now, it's pretty clear that our Congress and the president, they are controlled by the money, and therefore they won't even take the most basic steps to be able to solve this actual problem. So we got to get the money out of politics. We got to vote for real progressives who are actually planning on doing something about this. And again, not just about guns, but doing stuff about mental health and all the other factors that contribute. We can't just focus on one thing at a time. We've got to hit them all. And we got to do it soon. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.